Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of General Sir John Kotalawala Defence University, let me warmly welcome you all to the Technology Track Technical Session 2 on the International Research Conference 2022. This technical session is based on the theme of Sustainable Energy and Applied Engineering Technology and will be chaired by Professor P.G. Rathnasiri, Senior Professor in Department of Chemical and Process Engineering, Faculty of Engineering, University of Moratuwa. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to cordially invite Senior Lecturer Dr. Sailesh Shrestha, Technology Track Coordinator, to give you a brief introduction of the chair of the session.
Good morning, judging panel, authors, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to warmly welcome all of you to the second technical session of Technology Track in this KDU International Research Conference 2022. Without taking much time, please let me briefly introduce the chair of this technical session, respected Professor P.G. Rathnasiri. Professor P.G. Rathnasiri graduated with first-class honors degree in Chemical and Process Engineering from the Department of Chemical and Process Engineering, University of Moratuwa. He obtained his MSc by research degree from University of Manchester, UK, and PhD from Norwegian University of Science and Technology, NTNU, Trondheim, Norway. He followed a postdoctoral fellowship on biohydrogen production at Center of Walloon Biological Industry, University of Liege, Belgium. His research is focused on bioenergy, wastewater, solid waste treatment, and he has published several book chapters, peer-reviewed journal, and conference papers. He has contributed internationally and nationally in various capacities as visiting professor, technical advisor to Environmental Pollution Control Unit of Central Environmental Authority, project consultant to EIA, IEA projects, committee member with UNEP, UNDP programs, trained auditor at National Biotechnology Industry Association to evaluate biosystems technology degree program. Professor Rathnasiri is currently working as professor in contract in our Faculty of Technology as he is in sabbatical leave from University of Moratuwa. So let us welcome Professor Rathnasiri to the head table as the chair of this technical session. And move this session forward on its leadership. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Sailesh, for the introduction. Everyone, actually, we are behind the time schedule. Let us try to finish the session without taking much time. So, before we begin this session, let me introduce our panel of judges. There are three members. Let me very briefly explain them. Dr. Rathnasiri, he is a senior lecturer from Department of Chemical and Process Engineering, University of Moratuwa. He had not given that much information, but I know he graduated from the Mechanical Engineering Department, University of Ruhuna, and then he did his PhD in Thailand. And before he joined to our department at University of Moratuwa, he was the production manager at Swadeshi Industrial Wells, PLC, Kandana, Sri Lanka. His expertise areas on life cycle analysis and basically bioenergy and energy related things. And then Dr. Akila Subasinghe, he is a senior lecturer in the Department of Electrical and Electronic Engineering, Faculty of Engineering, University of Wijayapala. Dr. Akila Subasinghe is a founding member of the Faculty of Engineering and is also the founder, dean of the faculty. He currently serves as the senior lecturer attached to the Department of Electrical and Electronic Engineering He received the BSc First Class Honours in Electrical Engineering from the University of Moratuwa, Sri Lanka. He then secured the degree of MSc, right, and the PhD from the Western University of Canada, working on cancer research and radiation biodosimetry. Correct. And let me introduce Dr. S.K. Wijayarathna, Senior Lecturer, Department of Electrical and Electronic and Telecommunication Engineering, Faculty of Engineering, KDU. Timeline also there. From July 2018 to 2019, Research Visiting Student, Department of Electrical Engineering, Faculty of Engineering, National Taiwan University, Taiwan. January 2016 to July 2018, Graduate Teaching Assistant at Faculty of Engineering, Chulalongkorn University, Thailand. October 2013 to 2015, Lecturer, Faculty of Computing, SLIT, Malabar. And 2014 to 15, Visiting Lecturer, Vocational University of Rathnasiri, Sri Lanka. August 2002, May 2012, Teaching Assistant of Undergraduate Program at AIT, Thailand. So I warmly welcome all of our three judges. Before I start the session, so we have actually total 15 minutes, isn't it? A total 12 minutes presentation and 3 minutes question time. Okay, you are given only 3 minutes for the questioning, including the panel of judges, isn't it? Right? And so this session is called Sustainable Energy and Applied Engineering Technology. So we have aligned 5 presentations. So I think without taking that much time, we will start the session. First presentation on determination of heavy metal tolerance and removability of the Staphylococcus sp TWSL1 isolated from an industrial effluent. Presenter is CD. Yeah, actually I forgot to invite all the authors to table. Please come Ms. CD Wijayarathna, KGR Samarawickrama, Ms. Jayathilaka, Amadoru and Ms. I not given Ms. JPS Jayathilaka. Please, I forgot that. Please come and see. This presentation is on determination of heavy metal tolerance. I think I went through the title. Presented by DMDC Dissanayake.
Thank you, sir. I'm Dissanayake, and I am a PhD student at the Department of Chemistry, University of Colombo. And I am glad to participate in this prestigious conference. The title of the presentation is Determination of Heavy Metal Tolerance and Removal Ability of the Staphylococcus species TWSL1 isolated from an industrial effluent. So first of all, I would like to say, as we are a developing country, we must try to have a healthy nation and take steps to mitigate health hazards caused due to contaminants. When we are talking about contaminants, in my research, I considered only one type of a contaminant, that is heavy metals. Metals that are toxic to living beings are called potentially toxic elements. These potentially toxic elements can be found in natural environment and are hazardous to all living beings. So, with the development of technologies, these potentially toxic elements, entering of these potentially toxic elements to the environment have been increased. So, as you can see here, agriculture, fossil fuel combustion, mining and weathering of mineral-like biogenic sources, and industrialization are the major source of potentially toxic elements. And these are several potentially toxic elements which can commonly found in the environment, and their toxicity depends on their concentration. Finally, ultimately they can enter into the flora and fauna via food chains. So the accumulation of potentially toxic elements in food chains can cause severe chronic diseases such as chronic kidney disease, and it's a severe issue in Sri Lanka. Hence, the decontamination of potentially toxic elements is important. Basically, physical, chemical and biological methods are used in the decontamination of potentially toxic elements. And the using advanced technologies and expensive method to decontamination of potentially toxic elements are not feasible. Therefore, there is an urgent need to find a cost-effective and eco-friendly method to decontaminate these potentially toxic elements. And the biological methods are one of mostly eco-friendly and cost-effective method because they are developed using naturally evolved mechanisms. When we are talking about bioremediation, it is a major biological method to decontaminate heavy metals because by restoring and cleaning up the contaminated sites. And in bioremediation, biological mechanisms inherent in microbes and plants are mainly used. As well, the biotransformation of heavy metals into their less or non-toxic forms is the mechanism used in bioremediation. When we are talking about bacterial bioremediation, the users evolved or gained mechanisms and characters of bacterial strains in the process of decontamination. And when we consider the mechanisms of bacterial bioremediation, there are several mechanisms such as biotransformation, bioaccumulation, biomineralization, microbially enhanced chemisorption of metals, biodegradation of chelating agents, bioleaching and biosorption. So, to achieve the research goal, I carried out my experiments to achieve these objectives. First one is isolation of a heavy metal resistant bacterial strain from an industrial effluent, determination of the heavy metal tolerance and bioremediation capacity of the isolated bacterial strain, finally the molecular characterization of the isolated bacterial strain. Moving on to methodology, first to isolate the heavy metal resistant bacterial strain, industrial effluent was collected from the textile dyeing industry located in Colombo area. Then the different dilutions of the collected industrial effluent were screened on LB agar plates by spread plate method. And also next, the isolated pure colonies were screened for heavy metal tolerance by observing the growth of LB agar plates spiked with the mixture of cadmium, lead and copper heavy metals. And finally, a bacterial isolate which grew well was selected for further analysis and it was designated as TWSL1. Then to determine the heavy metal tolerance and bioremediation capacity of the bacterial strain TWSL1, the minimum inhibitory concentrations were determined by spreading 10 microliter of an overnight grown culture on LB agar plate supplemented with the same metal ions at different concentrations. Reaction.
I warmly welcome Vice Chancellor, University of Kottala Defence University, Major General Mulinda Piris. We are honored to hear with us just to observe our activity. Thank you, sir. Okay, you can.
Right, thank you. Then the growth with the time in the presence of heavy metals was determined by measuring optical density at 600 nanometers at the time intervals 1, 3, 5 and 7 days. Then after the heavy metal removal capacity was determined by separately inoculating into each metal ion spike broth, and concentrations of the metals were determined at the time intervals of 1, 3, 5 and 7 days using atomic absorption spectrophotometer. Then the bioremoval percentage was calculated using this equation. Finally, the strain TWSL1 was molecular characterized. For that, firstly, genomic DNA of TWSL1 was extracted using a modified guanidine thiocyanate method. Then the 16 days rRNA gene was amplified using the primer pair FD1 and RD1. Then after the amplified PCR product was sequenced and analyzed using bioeditor and NCBI nucleotide blast. Finally, the whole genome of the identified bacterial strain was sequenced using Illumina platform followed by de novo assembly. And well, the results and discussion. As you can see here, the isolated TWSL1 strain grew well on multimetal enriched LB agar medium. When consider its colony morphology, it has small circular colonies with ambonite type elevation, and they are pale yellow colonies with shiny mucoid texture. And these are the minimum inhibitory concentration for the respective metal layers. When consider the minimum inhibitory concentration values, as you can see here, the highest minimum inhibitory concentration was for lead. That means the isolated strain TWSL1 was highly resistant for lead. And when consider the growth of the strain TWSL1 in metal spike media, as in this graph, you can see
there was a steady growth during the tested period, and initially there was a high growth in cadmium spike media, but it was started to decrease on day 5, maybe due to the cell started to die at this stage. And on the 7th day, I mean the end of the experiment, the highest growth rate was observed in copper spiked media. However, in the tested period, the steady growth was noticed. That means that revealed the high tolerance of TWSL1 strain for the tested heavy metals. And this graph represents the bioremoval of heavy metal ions by TWSL1 strain. As you can see here, at the end of the experiment, that means on the 7th day, the TWSL1 was able to remove copper by 65% and cadmium by about 43% and lead by about 70%, and the highest bioremoval was observed for lead. As I mentioned previously, the highest minimum inhibition concentration was also observed in lead, and that means the strain was highly resistant to lead. And as you can see in the graph, the metal ion concentrations were started to decrease from day 1, so that reveals the metal removal mechanisms of TWSL1 get activated upon the exposure to metal ions. And another fact is that in the control samples where no inoculums were present, there was no significant metal reduction. That means the metal removal of the TWSL1 is metal removal is solely due to the metal removal mechanisms of TWSL1. And finally, the strain was molecular characterized. The blast analysis of 16S rDNA sequence of the isolated TWSL1 showed a high sequence similarity to the 16S rDNA sequence of Staphylococcus varanerii strain RET5B. The sequence similarity was about 97%, and this picture shows the 16S amplified 16S rRNA gene of the strain TWSL1, and the PCR product was about 1500 base pair in size. And this picture shows the NCBI blast results of the sequence of TWSL1 strain. And the whole genome sequencing data reconfirmed the TWSL1 strain as Staphylococcus varanerii, and from the functional annotation data, it was revealed several metal resistant proteins. Those metal resistant proteins are listed here. And finally, I would like to conclude my research findings as isolated TWSL1 was identified as Staphylococcus varanerii. TWSL1 demonstrated significant metal tolerance and removal ability and the high resistance for lead. And the functional annotation data of whole genome sequencing of TWSL1 found to contain calci, COP-PZ, SUB-T, COP6 and CSOR genes. And hence the multimetal removal and tolerance capacities of TWSL1 reveal its potential to be used in development of biotechnological tools such as biosensors and biosorbents. Actually, I am currently developing a biosorbent and biosensor, and those are the references I went through. And finally, my big thank you goes to my supervisors, Professor E.D. Wijayarathna and Professor N.V. Chandrasekharan. And I would like to thank for the University of Colombo and National Science Foundation of Sri Lanka for their financial assistance. And thank you all for your listening.
Thank you very much for your presentation. Actually, we have limited time. So if the audience have any questions before I go to evaluation panel, if audience has any questions, you can ask very soon.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Ms. Dissanayake, for your interesting presentation. So actually, my question is, you mentioned that the identified bacterial strain shows a significant difference in removing those heavy metals. So have you ever tried statistically prove these things, like since you use the word significant? So, did you prove it statistically, or you just refer to that graph?
I just referred the graph with the with compared to the control
You
samples.
compare with the control sample
Yes.
and you just refer to the graph. Okay then. How many samples you selected when you are referring to the graph? How many
I did 3 replicates per the experiment. For
three
per one
replicates for control and
sample. Yes.
3 replicates for the
Test
sample.
samples.
Thank you.
Yes, you are welcome.
Any more questions from the audience? If there are no, actually, before I go to evaluation panel, I have a very quick question for you.
Yes.
In your experimentations, you have actually isolated your culture, your bacteria, and then you have conducted experiments to remove the heavy metal,
Yes.
isn't it?
Yes.
My question is, in that industrial application, if you are using pure cultures, we cannot use. They are contaminated.
Yes.
So how you overcome that challenge? Because you have done the metal spiking with the synthetic media. No? In the actual industrial wastewater, we have mixed cultures. So how you said you are going to apply the industry.
Yes. Yeah.
So how you overcome that challenge?
Yeah.
And also other thing is, you have conducted batch experiments, no? In your experimentation, isn't it?
Yes.
Did you try the continuous feeding?
Yes.
Where are those results?
Continuous breeding means.
Continuous feeding. Only batch results, no, you are showing.
Yes.
So what about
That's why I
did you try?
No, sir.
What about my answer? Industrial application.
Yes, sir. I'm not going to use these pure cultures for the industrial application. I'm going to identify the metal resistant genes of the strains, and I'm going to use, I'm going to isolate these genes, and I have to develop biotechnological tools. And I'm not going to use these pure cultures to apply the environment. I mean the industry.
Your objective is different.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Now you can actually evaluation panel. Now you can.
Okay. Thank you for Ms. Dissanayake. Thank you for your presentation. So I have one question. You mentioned that it's textile industry effluent that you extracted this, right? So how about maybe when this culture, the extracted bacterial strain, when it is there in the industrial effluent, there may be some, as Professor asked, there may be some existing content of heavy metal in that also. There may be some adsorption capacity of that. So did you check that initial?
Yes, I tested the industrial effluent sample for the presence of its heavy metals, and the concentration of those heavy metals is not enough to test for the experiment. So that's why I spiked with heavy metals, the cultures.
So then in your results, it shows that lead has the highest
Yes.
resistance. Can you explain why it happens? Because maybe there may be some effect with the initial content.
Initial content means?
Maybe when you extract with the industrial effluent, there may be some heavy metal content comes with that. How you avoid that?
I tested the I didn't test the industrial effluent samples. I did the experiment with pure LP broths.
Right. Okay.
Those were the cultures I spiked with those heavy metals.
Right. But you mentioned here the bacterial strains present in textile industrial effluent.
Yes, I isolated those bacterial strain from the textile
Then in the experiments you check pure one,
because
right?
it's a well-known fact now,
right.
textile dye industry uses cadmium, lead and those heavy metals.
Okay, so you did the experiments for the pure culture, but you think that you try to build up some relationship with the industrial effluent. If
Yes.
that is there may be this type of resistance. Okay, understood. Right.
Okay,
that's enough for me.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your presentation. You can. Then we go to our next presentation. The title is Green Synthesis of Iron Nanoparticles from Long Coriander. Eryngium Foetidum is a difficult name to pronounce biologically. Leaves aqueous extract. KGR Samarawickrama.
Good afternoon, everyone. I am Samarawickrama from University of Moratuwa, MPhil student. Firstly, my research topic is green synthesis of iron nanoparticle from long coriander leaf aqueous extract. Firstly, I give describing my content of my research: introduction, research objectives, methodology, results and discussion, conclusion and acknowledgement. Then I give the introduction of my research. Nanotechnology is one of the most rapidly increasing technology of new development with wide range of practical application. Nanotechnology studies manipulation and using the matter through chemical and physical techniques to produce material with certain properties have various applications. And nanotechnology have a high surface area to volume, and those samples have a nanometric size range. And nanomaterial can be divided into three main stages such as nanoemulsion, nanoclay and nanoparticles. The most fundamental stages is nanomaterial is nanoparticle. Nanoparticle can be categorized in carbon-based nanoparticle, metal nanoparticle, semiconductor nanoparticle, polymeric nanoparticle and lipid-based nanoparticle. Nanoparticles are used in various applications such as medicine, energy, agriculture, information and communication, heavy industry and consumer goods. The chemical and physical method mostly used in synthesized nanoparticle, but they have a required high pressure, high temperature and toxic chemical. Therefore, need to discover toxic-free, highly effective, non-expensive and environment-friendly method for synthesized nanoparticle. Therefore, I used in this research for green synthesis method. Green synthesis method for use the natural extraction from plant materials such as leaf, flowers and seed, and that role of play in reducing agent and stabilizing agent. And this green synthesis method mostly suitable for synthesized metal and metal oxide nanoparticle. Otherwise, in this research I use in iron nanoparticle. Iron nanoparticle have a non-toxic, easy produce, eco-friendly and less expensive metal nanoparticle type. Iron nanoparticle are various applications such as medical, wastewater treatment, coating and nanofiber extractor. Otherwise, in this research, I use the long coriander leaves as a reducing agent and stabilizing agent. The coriander leaf plant is native to South America and grown in low wet land in Sri Lanka. It is found in grassland and cultivated as a plant in home garden. It is also used the snake bite in Ayurvedic medicine, and some individual grown in plant near their home because they believe the plant are effective snake repellent and especially for cobras. Then I described in this slide in my research objectives. First one is to green synthesize iron nanoparticle using the aqueous extract of long coriander leaves. Second one is to do characterization process, synthesize iron nanoparticle using scanning electron microscope, energy dispersive X-ray analysis, X-ray diffraction analysis, Fourier transfer infrared and spectroscopy analysis and UV spectroscopy analysis. Then I explain in methodology of my research. Firstly, prepare the process of aqueous extract of long coriander leaves. Firstly, I get the fresh leaves of long coriander, then wash and clean well and shade dry in few days. After the few days, we can get the dry leaves and do the grinding process of as a chopping. And after chopping, chopped leaves were 20 grams mixed with the 12 ml distilled water, 1 to 10 ml, and that mixture was heated at the 70 Celsius for 60 minutes. After 60 minutes, we can get the extraction of a mixture of long coriander leaves. That mixture filtration process and cool down process, we can get the extraction of long coriander leaves. That color has a reddish brown color, and we can see the diagram of the long coriander leaf. Then I explain in synthesis process of iron nanoparticle that was used in extraction of long coriander leaves and 0.1 ml ferric chloride solution. Firstly, 0.1 ml ferric chloride solution added dropwise to aqueous extract of long coriander leaves, MLR 2 to 1 with stir the mixture in 300 rpm and continuously stir the mixture at 60 minutes. Then after 60 minutes, the mixture was need to centrifuge at 6000 rpm 50 minutes. The centrifuge process done by 2 or 3 times, and we can get we discard the supernatant solution and get the precipitate. Precipitate need to clean when that was used the dialysis process. After dialysis process, need to dry well in iron nanoparticle that was used the vacuum oven and at 50 Celsius. And after a few hours ago, we can see the iron nanoparticle in powder form. Next slide, I explain in results and discussion session. Firstly, I explain in SEM analysis of synthesized iron nanoparticle. We can see the two diagram of 1 micrometer and 200 nanometer range. The morphology of the spherical shape appearance with the synthesized iron nanoparticle and particle size range between 30 to 50 nanometer range. Then I explain in EDX analysis of synthesized iron nanoparticle. We can see the diagram of EDX analysis. The EDX analysis from the determined atomic percentage of iron nanoparticle. The atomic percentage of synthesized iron nanoparticle are iron 9.82, carbon 44.77, oxygen 41.77, phosphorus 0.68, sulfur 0.97, potassium 1.02, calcium 1.03. Then I explain in XRD analysis of synthesized iron nanoparticle. We can see the diagram of spectrum of the XRD analysis. The presence of iron nanoparticles synthesized by aqueous extract long coriander leaves was confirmed by series of reflection angle and which corresponded to PAF panel, and characterizing peak of iron nanoparticle have been observed 2 theta equal to 33.14, and diffraction peak suggests that the results in nanoparticles are crystalline size and around the 43.30 nanometer calculated by scaling equation. And then I explain in FTIR spectrum of synthesized iron nanoparticle. We can see the FTIR spectrum in diagram, and we can see the four broad peaks of the broad peaks, and which can be determine the four functional group of synthesized iron nanoparticle: OH group, carbonyl group, alkene, and stretching of the iron oxygen bond. Then I explain in UV analysis of synthesized iron nanoparticle. We can see the spectrum of UV analysis. UV spectrum analysis will observe the absorption peak of range at 250 to 295 range, and maximum peak was observed 272 nanometer. Then my conclusion is the characterization procedures such as SEM, EDX, XRD, FTIR, UVs employed to confirm formation of iron nanoparticle. These results are verified the aqueous extraction of coriander leaf can be used to synthesize iron nanoparticles, reducing and stabilizing agent. The green synthesized method is natural, fast, eco-friendly, and cost-effective methods of synthesized metal nanoparticles. My acknowledgement is the authors are thankful to General Sir John Kothalawa, Defence University, gave the opportunity to publish the paper at conference of IRC 2022, and also thankful University of Moratuwa to provide the financial support under research done SRC LT 2021-13 to make conference paper published. Thank you all of you.
Thank you very much. You finished actually on time. Audience, you have any questions? If there are no questions, I can ask from the panel.
I'm not an expert in this area, but I'll ask you one question. Why coriander leaves be one of the key issues, right?
Sir, this is one of my research, one of plant. I use 6 plants, and I check the already others plants and optimizing process. This is the one of plant that I use in my research.
So 6 plants, 6 papers.
Yes, sir. 6 papers. I use in textile in like fastener properties. like a nanomaterial can be, I checked the nanomaterial can be improve the fastness properties. Therefore, I use this 3 different nanomaterials, cellular nanocrystal,
You need some water?
Three different nanomaterials, cellular nanocrystal, carboxylate cartesian, also use the iron nanoparticle. And these 3 are using from the, I optimize the, improve the fastness properties of dyeing natural dyes. Therefore, use the this iron nanoparticle type.
So the question is like it's more not a technical question. It's more
Yes.
of like a research approach kind of question.
Yes.
If you selected six types,
yes.
what was your selection criteria? So that is the question. But I'll also make one comment about the presentation. That's a general comment. Like never ever put text in a slide and keep on reading the slide.
Yes.
So that's a general comment, because it's always the audience tend to lose interest in that.
Yes, long Coriander means I use in a long Coriander also have a oxidizing agent. Therefore, I use in that part.
Yeah, okay. I have several questions. One thing is, it seems like your focus is synthesizing iron nanoparticles, right?
Yes, sir.
So in your abstract also you mentioned at the end there are a wide range of industrial applications. What are the industrial applications of this?
The heavy metal, effluent treatments, and I think that mentioned in the presentation, effluent treatment and coatings likewise.
So do you have any idea of after you synthesize this nanoparticle and you use it for some application and further study on this?
Further studies.
In your future studies?
Yes, I think I will in future.
Okay,
Yes.
right. And you had done several analytical analysis. So there. What I saw is in your results, the reference values are missing. For an example, the UV-VC spectrometry, you say that your peak values are there, but how about the real nanoparticles, real iron nanoparticles? What are their range of? Do you have any idea about it, or is it just you just want to find the maximum peak is this, but how you ensure that it is iron nanoparticles?
So I read the literature reviews, and I think I saw the iron nanoparticles have a 200 to 300 nanometer range.
Okay.
And otherwise maximum peak vary with this range.
Right. So similar to the FTIR also.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Right. Okay.
I have a question for you. Actually, in your extraction process, you have used only one set of conditions, no?
Yes, sir.
You can't say that is optimum. In a research, we expect you to dig in here and there and then come up with the things.
Yes.
For your extraction procedure is very straightforward. These are my parameters. This is what I get.
Yes.
So how can you say?
So I do in several extraction methods. Firstly,
No, what I'm asking in this particular space is,
yes.
how did you get that parameters? Are the literature values or you tested in the laboratory?
Firstly, I get the literature review. Then I check the laboratory and confirm it.
But you have to show that, okay, in your presentation.
Yes, sir.
Otherwise, we don't know actually from where they came, okay? Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you for your presentation, somewhat similar to the professor. Oh, sorry. Actually, now you have done some finding, you have some results,
Yes.
but you are not the first one who's doing this, right? So there should be a comparison.
Yes.
Yeah, with your results, then only we can validate whether you are telling the truth or not, right?
Yes.
So that part is missing over here. So in future, you said few more leaves and other experiments
Yes,
are
yes.
going on, so better. This is just an
Comparison.
advice. Comparison should be there.
Yes.
Otherwise, you are not the first one who's doing this, right? Okay, thank you.
It is an honor to invite the Vice Chancellor of General Sir John Kothalavala Defence University, Major General Milinda Peris, to present the token of appreciation to the Chair of the session, Professor P.J. Rathnasiri, and the Dean, Dr. Prasanna Premadasa, Faculty of Technology, to accompany him. Thank you, sir.
Okay, we will move on to next presentation. Title is Design of Hybrid Blade Profile for Standalone Wind Turbine Generator Systems. HMKP Jayathilaka.
Good afternoon all, and welcome to my presentation on publication where the title is The Design of Hybrid Blade Profile for Standalone Wind Turbine Generator Systems. And I am HMKP Jayathilaka, and this research was carried out at Faculty of Engineering, University of Ruhuna. Here's the outline of this presentation. First, I will introduce to my research project and then the aims and objectives, then the methodology, and something about the 3D and 2D simulation, and finally how we build up the testing apparatus and the results and observations, and at the end we will discuss the things we have drawn from this research and the conclusions. We know that the wind turbines can be classified based on several parameters. The first one we can categorized based on the forces acting on the turbine blade. Basically, there are two types. The first one is the lift type, and the second one is drag type. Those classifications are based on the forces acting on the wind turbine blade. And the next classification based on the axis of rotation of the turbine. The first one you can see the axis is horizontal, so we call them as horizontal axis wind turbines. And the second one, the rotation axis is vertical, so we call them as vertical axis wind turbines. And there are some types of vertical axis wind turbines, namely there are Savonius, Darius, H-blade, like that. Just to get an idea, I have shown them. And under this research, we are going to consider a typical vertical axis wind turbine, and here's the terminology for vertical axis wind turbine. You can see the chord length, rotor diameter, blade span, and the support arm and shaft. In this research, we are going to consider this kind of vertical axis wind turbine, and here we are focused on developing the aerofoil blade or the aerofoil profile of a vertical axis wind turbine. We know that vertical axis wind turbines are effective for low wind speed and for the small scale power generations, mostly the standalone power generation systems. And this hybrid blade profile concept is not a new concept. There are several patent hybrid blade profiles. You can see on the right side there are 4 types of blade profiles, hybrid blade profiles, and we have taken into consideration only for these 4 blade profiles. And these hybrid blade profiles helps to overcome the problem of having poor starting torque, and it helps to utilize the combined effect of lift or drag forces, because previously we make the use of either lift force or the drag force, but by using hybrid blade profiles we can harness the energy with the effect of lift and drag forces. And when it comes to the aim of this project, we mainly focused on developing a hybrid blade profile for vertical axis wind turbines to make the use of combined effect of both lift and drag forces while increasing the efficiency of an wind turbine. And for this research we have used certain CFD simulations, and the purpose of this CFD simulation was to evaluate the performance of different vertical axis wind turbine blade designs, and ultimately determine the efficiencies by simulating virtually without testing them physically. And for this purpose we have used the simulation software ANSYS Fluent. Here you can see how we set up the simulation for an 3D aerofoil. First we design the aerofoil in SolidWorks and import it to ANSYS and generate the mesh. And after configuring the simulation and performing the simulation, we have managed to obtain these distributions like stream velocity streamlines and the pressure variation. This is for a single blade profile, and by the way we have performed several simulations for several blade profiles. And this is a typical graph generated after performing a simulation, and the first graph shows you the variation of the drag coefficient with the number of iteration of the simulation, and on the right hand side you can see the drag force variation. Likewise, this is the variation of lift coefficient and the lift force for an hybrid blade profile. And considering the computational power limitations, we have moved to 2D simulation, because performing a 3D simulation consumes much more computational power, and it doesn't make any much difference if we move to 2D simulation, because the cross section is uniform over a vertical axis wind turbine blade. And here's how we develop the geometry and perform the meshing and setting up the simulation in ANSYS simulation software. First we have defined the boundaries and domains, and then we move to the mesh generation. And when developing the simulation and setting up it, the following configurations we have used. The state of the simulation was transient, and the fluid flow model of the simulation was K epsilon, and the condition and the boundary condition was the fluid material was fluid, and the boundary condition is 5 meters per second inlet air flow velocity. And for the mesh configuration we have used dynamic mesh configuration with 6 DOF, including 1 degree of freedom for the rotation of the turbine. And these are the typical values for air properties of air, the density and the viscosity values. And when running the simulation, we have used the time step as 0.005 seconds, and the number of time step is 20,000. Here you can see, once we perform the simulation, here's how the turbine starts rotating when there is a wind of 5 meters per second wind flowing through the wind turbine. It starts from the rest and start rotating itself. This is under no load conditions. And here you can see the pressure distribution at certain time during the simulation. Here you can see the variation of tangential velocity with time. This is the tangential velocity of tip of the blade profile, and you can see once it's subject to a flow of wind, it starts from rest and constantly increasing its angular velocity, and at some case it reaches an steady state velocity. During this transition, you can see the variation of torque with time as shown in this diagram. This is simulated under no load condition, so it reached to a maximum torque or moment value, and then eventually as the rotational speed increases, it reach a balanced state where it cannot produce external moment further. For the calculation purposes, we need to know the coefficient of performance. Here is the equation used for the calculation of the coefficient of performance. First, we have to calculate the available wind power. For that, we have used this equation, and for this testing purposes, we have used a wind tunnel, and it can only provide airflow of 5 meters per second, and the corresponding available wind power is this value, 7.625 watt. And after configuring the equations in MATLAB, ANSYS, we managed to generate the plot of coefficient of performance over flow time, and you can see it reach a maximum while it proceed with the simulation, and we considered only the maximum coefficient of performance value. These are the simulation result obtained for the selected 4 blade profiles, and here we have done some modifications to the selected blade profiles, and by changing the geometry and certain dimensions, we have come up with several designs for the hybrid blade profile by making some modification, and we have evaluated the performance of those modified blade profiles and obtained these COP values using the simulation with the help of ANSYS simulation software. And we further shortlisted the designs and come up with the maximum COP value, and the design can be the invert configuration got the maximum value. And here's the comparison of the parent blade profile and the modified blade profile, and here the conceptual design of testing apparatus that we plan to fabricate, and here how the fabrication went on. And this is the final apparatus we have managed to build up for our testing and experimental purposes. This is how when the wind turbine is in operation. On the right hand side there is a wind tunnel which provides the airflow to generate the wind power, and the turbine tends to rotate. There are some adjustment options in the rotor. We can adjust the rotor diameter like this, and there are some other options like we can change the pitch angle according to the experiment. And there are several other technical features of this apparatus: interchangeable blades, changing the number of blades, changing the rotor diameter, changing the pitch angle, and we can easily measure the torque and the rotational speed. These are 3 of the blade configuration we can use, and here the instrument we use for the testing and performance evaluation. And these are the experimental conditions we set up for the simulation, and here's a typical curve we obtained for COP versus applied torque. And we obtained some experimental values for different configurations. Here the values and results were compared with the simulation result, and we observed a considerable deviation from the observed value from the experiment and the CFD simulations. There are several factors in the context of simulation, not applying a finesse mesh, and the time step variations, and the physical model may not resemble the realistic behavior of the actual system. And there are also practical factors affect for the variation of simulation result from the practical results. That may be the frictional resistance, and blade profiles are not ideally shaped in geometry like that. And finally, when it comes to discussion, we have managed to achieve our main goals like performing the CFD simulation successfully and designing and fabrication of testing apparatus. And we can conclude that the simulation can be further accurate by utilizing the high performance computation, and also we can improve the prototype and increase its precision and accuracy and produce more accurate experimental result. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any questions from the audience? Yeah. Dr. Sailesh, yes, please.
Thank you very much. I just want to ask one question. Like, you have taken 2D simulation for your blade. Since if you have a blade in like oblique, like a blade have dimension in X, Y, Z. If your turbine blade is like oblique, then what do you think? Like in that case, can you use only 2D simulation, or is 3D simulation is better?
No, then we have to move to a 3D simulation.
And in your case, like, did you compare the results for both 2D and 3D simulation?
Yes, in this case, we have considered this kind of vertical axis wind turbine. The oblique shapes we haven't took into consideration in this research.
Yeah, and then I want to ask, like, did you for this blade also for your research, like, did you compare the air velocity distribution from 2D simulation and with the 3D simulation? You only did 2D simulation.
Yeah, we did only 2D simulation because of the available compute resource, because it needs more computational power and compute resources to perform such a 3D simulation with great accuracy.
Okay, so I just want I like to suggest you, if you in your future research, if you have that facility, if you compare the results from the both 2D simulation and 3D simulation, and if you can publish that research, then I think it will be useful for the researchers in your field.
Yes, indeed.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Now I go to panel members.
Okay, so I have a few questions. One is now, as the previous question, so you are talking about vertical axis wind turbines. So maybe in your conclusion also you mentioned that the same thing, that if you have the computational power, you can go for further accuracy with 3D. But can you discuss about what is the relevance of 2D simulation for vertical axis wind turbine compared to the horizontal axis? Do you understand my question? I mean, the relevance, like how far you can explain about this vertical axis turbine using 2D simulation, 2D CFD simulation?
Because the cross section of the airfoil blade is uniform throughout the blade. If you consider this type of typical vertical axis wind turbine, but in the horizontal vertical wind turbines, mostly their cross section is not uniform and got an oblique shape.
Okay, then did you consider the wind speed variation here? Because there may be some effect due to the wind speed variation on the blades.
We could change the wind velocity in simulation, but we conducted the experiment in the laboratory, and that
not in the simulation. You didn't do that in the simulation, or
no? We just used the same speed as the wind tunnel in the simulation also.
But you didn't check the variation of you did not vary the wind speed effect, right? And the direction also.
No.
No, right? That may be a limitation of your study. Then the other thing is generally the application of this vertical axis wind turbine is you will install it maybe at rooftop, or maybe location where maybe where you can't fix a horizontal one, right? So then how about the load applied on the support of this? So for an example, if you install it on a rooftop, do you have any idea about
we haven't included in that
level
in our scope, but it depends on the scale of and the size of the wind turbine. Basically, these wind turbines are very small, and
so can you install it on a rooftop?
Yeah, we can install in rooftop.
Then what would be the analysis you should do for that?
The support arm and the shaft has to be designed according to the environmental conditions such as the wind speed and other things. When fixing the wind turbine, you have to consider the structural support.
We are running actually out of time. You have any quick questions? Okay. Right.
Touched at the last moment for the structural issues.
Okay then. Right. Thank you very much. Now, thanks for the presentation. Okay.
Thank you.
Now we are moving to next one. Use of sensor-based automated irrigation for the mitigation of groundwater depletion and pollution issues in Kalpitiya, Sri Lanka. Conducted by Mr. I.J. Amadou.
Good afternoon, you all. I am Indiva Ramadoru from Biodiversity of Sri Lanka. I am one of the authors of this study, which is on use of sensor-based automated irrigation for mitigation, groundwater depletion and pollution issues in Kalpitiya. It is a bit large one, but if I get it in simple way, what we did was we introduced an irrigation control system. So that is given here. So if I come into the slides. So this was done based on Kalpitiya region because it is important for us because it is agriculturally sort of active area in our country. And the thing is that the problem is mainly the farmers add many fertilizers. So they use fertilizers, large amounts. So, and they never stop that one. The result is, because of that high amount of usage of fertilizer, mainly that the aquifer below the Kalpitiya region is almost contaminated with fertilizer. They never stop adding fertilizer, but we can suggest them to control watering because that is the only way those fertilizers can move into the ground layer. So if we can stop the amount, if we can control the amount of water we are going to add, then we can control the fertilizer contamination level as well. So, so that was our main aim. For that, we introduced a control irrigation system. And at the same time, we compared our thing with the existing methods at Kalpitiya, especially what they are using for irrigation. And so if I get the main objective, it is to assess the feasibility of sensor-based irrigation control to reduce the groundwater depletion and pollution. And while achieving this one, we also completed 2 specific objectives. So that the first one is to implement a wireless sensor-based soil moisture system. So this is the main part. So we introduced a wireless sensor-based soil moisture sensors. Through those sensors, we detected the soil water contents throughout the period. And then we got data for controlling our irrigation. And the second specific objective was to evaluate the irrigation adequacy in farmers' experience, timer and sensor-based irrigation system. So this is a kind of comparison. So we compared our system with the 2 existing systems, that is the farmer-based, their experience-based irrigation system, and the second one is timer-based irrigation. So these 2 things are mainly practicing in Kalpitiya region. So many farmers, so they set timers for their irrigation kits. So then they can control their irrigation units through a timer. And other than most of the farmers, they are doing irrigation with their own experience. So they do what they feel. And if I take here, our experimental site was Kandakuliya Research Station, and we conducted this study from March to April 2022. And as I mentioned you earlier, we had 3 treatments. So the one is, 3 treatments are irrigation control, the irrigation methods. The first one is farmers experience-based irrigation. The second one is timer control irrigation, and third one is our new one, that is sensor-based irrigation system. So actually, we started this as a basic initiation, so we didn't use any crop for this one. Actually, that is our next aim, doing this with the crop. But for the initiation, we did this on a bare land without having a crop, just on the soil. So we used sprinkler irrigation as the mode. So we introduced our controlling system to a sprinkler irrigation system. So if I give some information about that sprinkler unit, if I take the spacing 4 by 4 meters, and especially to monitor the groundwater contents, we installed 3 sensors in each treatment at 15, 45 and 70 centimeter depths. So then we were able to monitor the groundwater contents using moisture sensors. Actually we use TDR moisture sensors. And so these are the 3 main treatments, of the photographs of 3 main treatments. Actually in irrigation what we are doing is, simply if I take soil, there are some soil moisture status known as field capacity and permanent building point. In irrigation what we are doing is we need to control water level in between field capacity, that is the best level for crop growth, and the permanent wilting point, that is the stage plants show wilting symptoms. So in irrigation what we are doing is we are controlling the water level in between those 2 stages. So in our new system, the system was capable in detecting these 2 stages. It means, simply if I tell you, if the soil water content goes up to the field capacity, then the system automatically switch off the irrigation system. If the water level goes down the permanent building point, then the system automatically switches on the irrigation system. So that's how we maintain the irrigation during our study. So here in all 3 treatments we used these TDR sensors to detect the ground soil water contents. Only in the treatment number 3 was our new one. It means that was the automated irrigation system. So all 3 units were similar, but the third one was capable in automatically controlling irrigation. And so this is how we did our moisture detection and transferring it to a IoT platform. So here we used LoRa device or LoRa gateway. So first TDR sensors detected the soil water contents, and it through the LoRa gateway it transferred it to a cloud. Actually we used ThinkSpeed IoT platform where the values are processed, and we can have the needed one from that platform. So you can see this is the sensor controlling system and the TDR moisture sensors. So here, so as I mentioned before, so what our aim was to maintain the soil water content in between permanent building point and the field capacity. So we checked the values for culpity region, and we found that field capacity was 0.17, and at the same time if we consider the permanent building point, that was 0.09 meters. and the values are given as heights. So these two are the other two treatments, the farmer's experience-based treatment and the timer control system. So if I take the timer control system, that was operated 4 times per day, having 10-minute duration. And if I take the farmer's experience-based treatment, so this is how normally Kalpitiya farmers are practicing their irrigation. So they are doing their first irrigation morning 6 to 8 a.m. and sometimes, most of the time, they are practicing a midday irrigation 12 to 2 p.m. and usually they also practice evening irrigation as well, that is from 5 to 6. And there was another thing, because actually we need to find the exact location for installing our sensor system. So for that one, we check the distribution uniformity of our sprinklers. For that one, we performed a catch can test. So you can see here how we did it was. So we placed cans on the experimental plot and we checked how much of water is retained on those cans after operating the irrigation system. And we analyzed all the data using Excel. And so if I take this table, so we checked the distribution uniformity, and here that was ranged from 0.72 to 0.79. And so based on that one, we developed these types of graphs for each treatment. And you can see here, if I, the colorful part shows the irrigation heights, so on the field. And you can see at the center, we can have the maximum amount of water, because they are the only place we can see some kind of overlapping of irrigation. It means at the 4 corners there are 4 sprinklers, so they are putting all the water at the center. So at the center part, some kind of overlapping is happened. At the same time, if I consider the corners, they are having very less amount of water. So the best place to install our sensor was 1/4 away from the center and the corner of the diagonal part. It means we have to omit the center part as well as corners. And using the found values, we found that for the Kalpitiya region, at least we have to maintain 12 millimeter water height. So if I take it simply, if we consider if the soil water comes to the permanent built-in point, then we need to add 12 millimeter height of water to take back that soil into field capacity. And so these are the sensor readings what we found during our study. So this is how the values we took for the farmer-based irrigation, farmers' experience-based irrigation. So you can see when the depth increases, it means if I consider the 45 centimeter depths as well as 75 centimeter depths, you can see the sensors detecting some kind of higher amount of water. So you also can compare this one. So this is how timer-based irrigation worked. So somehow we were able to control irrigation using the timer-based irrigation as well. So you can see in there, with compared to the farmer's experience-based irrigation, we were able to control the water remaining at the deeper levels. And if I comes to the automated irrigation, so you can see now, largely we can control the amount of water retaining at the deeper levels. So only one thing, and we also check the adequacy of irrigation. It means if we consider a portion of land, this value tells how much of water is it receiving, actual amount of more than that. So you can see here, only the sensor-based irrigation receives 60% of, so that system was able to drag 60% of water at the top level. So you can see that the other two techniques, timer-based and the farmer's experience-based irrigation, did not achieve that level. So the final conclusion was our new system was okay at Kalpitia, but we have to check with the system with the crop because we practiced this one on a bare land. So our next step was to practice this one with the crop. So at the same time, I would like to acknowledge the AHEAD grant. So the grant gave us funds for doing this activity. So thank you very much.
Thanks for the presentation. Any questions from the audience? Okay. Could you please give the mic?
I'm not clear about the unit which you chose for measuring the soil water content. M/M means what is the unit?
It means finally the values are taken as a height. So normally in irrigation, so we are taking values in as a height. So here the content is given as so normally we give that in that way. So normally as a height. So that's why I included that one like here.
Like the aim previous height with respect to depth, or what is?
It means like this. So normally in irrigation, so if we can find out a value in height, just simply by calculating it into the area, we can find out the volume. So always we are, because of that, we are taking the values as height.
Fine. It is connected with volume. Another question, like why did you choose only the duration as March to April for your experiment? Why you choose only 2 months, like March to April for your experiments? Because in the July there will be heavy rain. So if you consider July, so July, August, the intensity of the rainfall, it will be high, I think, compared to March, April. So does it affect your result, or are you conducting this only for like a dry season?
Yes, actually we targeted the dry season for doing this one. Before the rain we completed the study and we just did this one, and the main one is with the crop. So that's why we did the study for a very brief period of time.
Then finally, your conclusion, are you like controlling the like total amount of water and like how do you control the fertilizer? Because in your topic you have mentioned some kind of the farmers are using more fertilizer. So your conclusion should be something like the fertilizer amount is reduced by the sensor, as the sensor controls the amount of water. Something like I could not find that in your conclusion.
Yes. So actually you are telling that we included some part in leaching, but nothing was given that one, because we are going to introduce this system to control irrigation. Thereby we are expecting if they can control, they can reduce the amount of leaching as well. So this is a basic one. So in the next steps we are going to measure those values as well.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dr. I go to panel now. One question from Dr. Sudarshan.
Thank you. Your presentation skills was very good. Very nicely explained everything, but like the application as well, but I do have a fundamental problem. It's looked more like an application than a research. I have few issues, but my major issue would be your state of the art, or like your benchmark. So in this case, your benchmark has been just farmers by experience putting water, right?
Yes, sir.
And when you develop a system,
yes, sir.
Especially in the situation where there are a lot of automated irrigation, IoT-based systems out there,
yes, sir.
I don't think you can compare yourself with the farmer and call it a day, say you achieved your outcome. Because for research, it has to be with something that you have to advance the frontier of your research. Do you agree, or what are your thoughts about?
Yes, sir. Actually, we are doing this one. We are not doing this one as a single thing. We are doing this one with some other experiment as well. So right now we are working together, introduce a new crop modeling system to Kalpitia. So as a part of that, we are going to introduce this one. And our next aim is, so we think that this will be a successful one. So currently there are few small scale manufacturers, so they are with us to replicate this type of units. And we are also trying to introduce this type of thing at Kalpitia. So currently we are working with that one, so as you mentioned.
Like I'm not saying this is not going to be used in the industry and all that, but this is a research conference. So what I'm asking is, like, do you see value in comparing with farmers, manual watering system, irrigation system and yours? And don't you think that you should have looked at some other data and then or some other system and have a comparison?
Yes, sir. I think that is not done here, but we are expecting to do it in the next level. So I think that is a needed one.
Okay, thank you. So now these findings, how will it be useful for your future work?
Madam, just we checked the system. So earlier it was only a hypothetical thing for us, but we checked this one. Actually, it is working, and as I mentioned you, the next stage is to apply this one with an actual crop model. So still we applied this one on bare soil, and we just checked the system. So we think that it will work. So in the next stages, we are going to apply with this with crop models.
Okay, so if you are now what you are thinking, if you apply this for crop features or anything, so what is your expectation?
Expectation is with our main target is anyhow to reduce the amount, the fertilizer leaching into the ground. We can't do it perfectly, but anyhow we can control it. So as sir suggested, so in the next stages we are also going to include that leaching part as well. So then we can tell, now we know we can directly control the amount of water moving down. So it means anyhow, most of the time we will able to control the fertilizer movement as well. But we have to check that one, and we have to find the values.
Okay, can you give me the initial cost for this 4x? This is for 4x4 test bed, right?
Yeah.
What is the cost?
Actually, the major cost component is the sensor. Actually, right now it costs somewhere 300,000 rupees.
300,000 rupees
Yeah.
per 4x4 test.
Not for the land area, for the sensor. That is the main cost component.
So
Yeah.
do you really think this will be cost effective? Now you are using LoRa as a technology as well. So do you think this is applicable for us? No, this is, you have to think, right?
Yes,
so
yes.
I just want to say, a country like Sri Lanka, so whether the cost, when you consider the cost, whether this is applicable. Okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
One more question. Now, I just want to know, are you doing this for controlled environment or simply the open
areas, not in the control.
There will be a lot of uncontrollable factors like rainfall and everything.
Wind.
So how you are going to overcome that challenge? Maybe.
Yes, actually, sir, we think that the main problem is rain. So if rain happens, nothing can do, because I think.
No, that's what I am going to suggest you. Because at the moment also. Something like greenhouses or something, the controlled environment agriculture, they are using this type of technologies. So maybe that's why I also find some fundamental issue with the research methodology that you have followed. When you conduct research, there must be, you have to clearly figure out the controllable and uncontrollable factors, dependent and independent variables of that scope that you are going to select. So maybe it would be very successful if you apply this to controlled environment agriculture, and try to develop that, then you can optimize the water use and save the water. That may be the ultimate target. No?
Yes, sir.
So then also the fertilizer mixing with that. So yes, please think about it. Right?
Thank you, sir.
Okay. Thank you very much. So once again, thank you for the presentation. Now we are moving to final presentation. Title is the influence of aerodynamic drag in the flight phase of long jump performance by Ms. Jayathilaka. Ms. Jayathilaka. Okay, you can start.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Chairperson from Department of Sports Science and Physical Education, Faculty of Life Sciences, Sabroka University of Sri Lanka. And today I'm here to present my extended abstract, the topic of the influence of aerodynamic drag in the flight phase of long jump performance. My supervisor is Dr. A.W.S. Chandan, Head of the Department of Sports Sciences and Physical Education, Faculty of Applied Sciences. And here this is the content of my presentation. Okay, let's get started with the introduction part. Once we're talking about the long jump is a field event where the combination of the ability of speed, strength, power and balance to achieve the more horizontal displacement in the field events. And according to Hay 1993, he found that the aerodynamics pose significant effect for the performance in numerous sporting events. According to Subboy 2010, he has explored that the impact of the arm and leg motion to the long jump performance, and he explored that these motions are used to enhance the leaping distance. Once I talking about the research problem based on my research, there are 3 techniques in the long jump: hitch sail, hitch and kick, and hang technique. All these styles have 3 different kind of air dynamics. And even for the same technique, it's differ from the player to player. And my research problem was how air dynamics can be affected to the performances. I have found that a limited number of literatures regarding my research topic, and all these literatures describe about the momentum of conservation in the air. And all these literatures, they got the results not using the absolute values. They are got the results using the predictions. Here, this is the major objective of my presentation. It's to find out how the water surface area and the air drag during the flight phase change with the time and how it is impacted the performances. And this is the specific objectives of my presentation: to measure the surface area of the athletes during the flight phase and to identify the long jump flight phase performance levels comparing with the Sri Lankan athletes and the world recorded athletes. And let's see how I implement my methods. First I identify the research problem, then I explore the literature reviews, then define the study population and the sample populations, then got the recording performance as the video captures, then measure the surface area and the air drag force using the softwares and the mathematical equations, then compare 3 flight techniques, then got the results, then finally discuss what I got as the results. My population was all male long jumpers in Sri Lanka. It's actually convenient sampling method. My sample population was 6 male national long jumpers. They selected 2 players for each 3 techniques. Here, this is the continuing my methodology. Let's see how I collected my data. So we are so fortunate to take the data from the National Asian Trans, which was held on 11th of February at Sukhothai Stadium. So I got all the video captures from there. Here, these are the apparatus which I used to fulfill my research. They are used specific and the customized apparatus called square frame. It's 45 centimeters for each sides. As you can see, this is the experimental setup of my research. So they are used 2 cameras, the 50 Hz for each. The one camera was keep on the ground on the frontal frame, and other camera was keep on the circular plane. So basically, I got the data using the frontal plane camera, and circular plane camera used to get the video captures as the supporting camera. Here, these are the softwares that I use: Kinovia 0.9.3 version and Photoshop 2020, and statistical software called SPSS. Let's see how I implement my method. I would like to say that I got 7 video captures, 6 for the performance and 1 for the square frame, which was traveling through the pitch starting from the takeoff port. So here this is the impartial position to illustrate you all to identify how I implement my method. As a first step, I found the horizontal displacement of the center of gravity for each player. So for the one player, I have to find 43 positions of their the horizontal displacement of their center of gravity. Then as a step 2, I have to find the corresponding position of the sagittal plane view of the square frame corresponding to the step 1 player which was on the position. And step 3 and step 4 are the frontal view of the step 1, step 2 player and the square frame on the corresponding position. And here this is how I utilize the Photoshop 2020 for my research methodology. So first I have to make a grid. So this is always adjustable, and the box of each grid is equal to the size of the square frame. So then I have to get the number of pixels for each boxes. There I got the number of pixels using the color range of that my square frame. The same grid, I have to paste the same position of the step 1, as you can see, the player's position. Then I have to select using the icon from the Photoshop, the player's area. Then how to find the number of pixels under the player. Then note down the number of pixels of the square frame in the same position, and the player's number of pixels at the same positions for the further calculations. And here this is how I use the mathematical applications to find out the relative surface area. I have to take the ratio between the number of pixels in athletes and the number of pixels in rectangular frame in the corresponding positions. After finding the ratio between those two, have to multiply in the actual area of the frame. It is 2025 square centimeters, and it's always for the it's always constant for the each positions. And the next steps, I have to find the corresponding drag coefficient to the relevant Reynolds number. That Reynolds number is always vary with the condition. So I have to find the suitable one for my research problem. So then after that, calculate the aero drag force using the equation of the aero drag according to Smith 1984, and they have to subtract the horizontal body speeds into the wind velocity, and how to multiply into the frontal surface area into drag coefficient. And here these are the results. Before getting the results, I have to get the data of descriptive, and they have got technique, height, weight, performance and the wind velocity for each 6 players. And these are the graphs of drag force versus into time for the player 1 and the player 2. There are different flight times, as you can see, and this is the graph for the hitch and sail technique. So there the maximum drag force can be seen just after takeoff, and optimize their flight position. So here this graph also the drag force versus time for the player 3 and player 4. So here also we can see that the maximum drag force can be seen in their maximum height. And this is the graph for the hand technique, and it's a drag force versus time for the player 5 and the player 6. And you can see this also is fluctuated with starting from the landing. So, and we can see that it's gradually decreased until they are landing on the pitch. And here this is a Pearson correlation between the surface area and the performance. So here we can see that negative strong correlation, we can found that the performance and the surface area changes, and it's always significant because the p-values are less than 0.05. And this is the positions that we can see in the various positions. They are utilize 5 basic positions to identify you all. So they also can be seen, they have different, in the same technique also, in same positions they also have different different like extensions, flexions and their hand movements also. And Here, this is the discussion of my presentation. So, each techniques have different body surface areas, and they are maximized just after takeoff, and the jerk position is the minimum values. And according to results, the average aeroduct force hitch and sail, hitch kick, and the hand technique, they are 9.7, 7.9, and 6.3 in respectively. And this is the conclusion of my presentation. This present study focused to identify the relationship between the performance and the surface area changes in each time frames during the flight phase and in long jump. And there is a correlation between the performance and the surface area changes in the early drag force effect to the performances. And here these are the references in my presentation. These are the recommendations. For future studies, we can use these methods to find out how the altitude, air pressure, and air density affect to the performance in long jump. And these are the action pictures. And here, this is the junior main long jumper record. And thank you all.
Thank you very much. Any questions from the audience very quickly?
Yes.
So I have seen that you have followed a more analytical method rather than going for a simulation method. I mean that you have used the Reynolds number calculation, and then after you got the to determine the drag force, you have used the equation to do that. So maybe have you? I mean that. Haven't you gone through that any kind of simulation software to do that? I mean that to determine the drag force.
No, I used to analyze this research from using the Kinovia software and Photoshop and statistical software called SPSS. And rather than that, I used two equations to find out the drag force.
Yeah, maybe you have used the Reynolds number equation. I have seen that. So there, have you found the velocity of that moment? I mean that the equation is somewhat
the velocity can be found out using the Kinovia software.
At the moment, and at that moment.
At each positions we can find out the horizontal velocity for each players.
Okay. Yeah. So which means for that moment you can find the optimum velocity.
Yeah.
So that can be changed according to the player.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So you have followed the more analytical method.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So have you compared with that? I mean then, which means. Can you guarantee about that your analytical method rather than using that softwares like?
You mean that compare with the other clips?
I mean the simulation softwares. I think you have you compared those results? Maybe.
I have compared with the world record athletes called Bayman, and his some previous literatures they have found that his movement patterns, but they were not used the absolute method to find out. They only predict what they have what they are discussing. But in here, according to my research, so we can find the absolute method to find out the drag force.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Yes.
Thank you. Then I go to panel.
Thank you. So, you I think worked with your time and presented very well. Just have few questions and clarifications. So you said you used Photoshop.
Yeah.
Right? Photoshop was used to get the outline of the athlete. Am I correct?
Sorry, sir?
To get the outline of the athlete, right?
Yeah.
So haven't you studied about some of the a lot of algorithms like even PhD Gaussian mixture PhD filters where you can autonomously detect the motion of a person. So there are specific areas like gait analysis where we actually study the movement of people, how people walk, see the signature movements of each person. Why didn't you think about either using an automated like a state-of-the-art software algorithm like that, or even go for a biomarker based system where you actually get them to wear certain biomarkers and then jump, then you can get a much more accurate reading. What are your thoughts on that?
Actually, sir, you mean the velocity, find the velocity, no?
Not only the velocity, but also the posture and all the movements.
Okay, sir. It's actually from using the Kinovia software. That software is very advanced for the biomechanical analysis. So actually, we can find out the horizontal displacements and other the velocities of horizontal and vertical velocity. So I think it's so.
You use Photoshop for.
And Kinovia software as well. Kinovia software as well.
What do you use Photoshop for?
Photoshop used for the find out, because always that it's actually this my research is always 3D calculations are going, but 3D calculations are not coming from the Kinovia software. That's why I used to the Photoshop for all this analysis.
Okay, thank you for your presentation. Now, when it comes to human postures, those are not changing from country to country. So those are unique, right? Our postures are unique. So now, what about your literature review? Didn't you find these findings in another domain?
Yeah, as I mentioned before, I found some literatures based on the one of the world record athletes called Bayman. And his records and his analysis is not perfect, because they all analysis are going through the predictions, not in absolute method. So using my methods, I think we can find out the absolute way to find drug force.
Okay, so did you compare your results with those results?
No, still not well.
Okay, so other thing is how these results will be useful for in your future.
Because the most of athletes, they negligible this type of air drag forces. They only think that their techniques, their practices and biological age and training age. I think these types of analysis is much important for the players and especially for the coaches, because they are not allow these types of researchers.
Okay, and how you are telling that your results are correct?
Yes, madam. It's actually have to think.
The same question I also
yes,
have.
Sir.
So you are trying to theoretically build up. You take 6 jumpers and try to build up some relationships. But how can you validate this?
Yeah, from the statistically that what I found from SPSS. So
can you statistically validate it?
Yeah.
Whether it will be successful.
The Pearson correlationship, I used the Pearson correlationship. So there, I got the strong correlationship between the performance and surface.
Then again, it will be theoretical, no?
Yeah, yes.
That's the thing. So maybe you can think about, so there are some techniques whenever you need to model something with practical aspects, right? With random behavior. So this as doctor said, it is random. So human posture is random.
Yeah.
So maybe you can use something like machine learning techniques, or maybe some neural networks or something, that type of computational methods are there. Then maybe you have to not use 6 jumpers, maybe many jumpers, right?
Sure.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks.
Okay then, thank you very much. So finally, now we have come to the closing ceremony.
Thank you, sir. While the judges decide the best oral presenter, I would like to invite you all to watch the video about the Faculty of Technology.
One of the country's key national policy objectives, as stated in the President's Manifesto, Vistas of Prosperity and Splendor, is to transform Sri Lanka into a technology-based society. As a state university and a trendsetter in tertiary education, KDU bears the national responsibility of developing new programs of study based on the needs of the country. A brainchild of the Vice-Chancellor Major General Melinda Pires, The new technology faculty was established to meet the needs of the defense forces as well as to support the government's initiative to produce technology graduates with the skills needed for the country's development drive. It was correctly identified that KDU's current organizational structure is most suited to establishing a multidisciplinary environment in the form of a technology faculty, which can also considerably contribute to KDU's research output. A technology faculty produces skilled professionals who collaborate with engineers to transform an engineer's concept into a practical reality. The faculty has been established with two departments: Department of Engineering Technology, Department of Biosystems Technology. Two departments offer Bachelor of Engineering Technology Honours and the Bachelor of Technology Honours degree programs in the following specializations: Construction Technology, Building Services Technology, Biomedical Instrumentation Technology, and Information and Communication Technology. The curricula of these degree programs have been developed to satisfy UGC guidelines and those prescribed by the Institute of Engineers Sri Lanka or the Computer Society of Sri Lanka. Curricular development was carried out in collaboration with over 100 resource personnel from KDU, other state universities, and the industry. Degree programs offered by the faculty are unique and will be in high demand both locally and internationally. The construction industry in Sri Lanka contributed 6.2% of GDP between 2019 and 2020 and is widely regarded as a significant driver of economic development. Despite the current pandemic, many large-scale construction projects are underway, including the Colombo Port City, sports facilities, and highway construction. The tourism sector is expected to boom once the current pandemic stabilizes. This will create a plethora of opportunities for construction technologists and the building services technologists. Sri Lanka has made remarkable progress in improving the health of its people over the years, with both the public and the private sectors contributing equally to the success. However, the most significant impediment to the growth of the private healthcare industry has been recognized as a dearth of health-related human resources. Demand for technology services is predicted to expand as the number of healthcare facilities and high-end equipment increases. KDU is optimistic that the biomedical instrumentation technologies it produces will help cover the skills gap. The new Information and Communication Technology degree was started in support of His Excellency the President's initiative to establish a citizen-centric digital government for the benefit of citizens. Without a doubt, the industry-focused education and the training provided to its students will provide them with the skills necessary to support the government's efforts. KDU has stepped forward to address the country's demand for technologists as a state university committed to shouldering the national responsibility of driving tertiary education in a highly disciplined environment. Without a doubt, the timely establishment of the Faculty of Technology under the visionary leadership of the current Vice Chancellor Major General Bilinda Pires will be a significant milestone in its history.
For the motherland forever. A dictum engraved on the coat of arms of the eminent personality, late Prime Minister Right Honourable Sir John Kotanavala, would become the founding cornerstone of the prestigious General Sir John Kotanavala Defence University. Nestled in the heart of Rathnasiri, Sri Lanka, the university, a beacon of defence-related higher education, was a labour of love for the General, whose life's work was to protect his country and entice thousands of others to do so. In the beginning, the General Sir John Kotanavala Defence University, now known as the KDU, was conceived as a tri-service academy and was referred to as the KDA. The academy at the time was tasked with upholding the roles of the three armed forces. Graduates belonging to each military discipline were skilled with the knowledge to effectively coordinate on ground, at sea and in air. With the Sir John Kothalavala Defence Academy Amendment Act, the Academy was empowered with the right to award degrees of its own. With the renaming in 2007 as the General Sir John Kothalavala Defence University, the Academy commenced its transformation to be a fully fledged university, becoming the only establishment of its nature to impart defence, diplomacy and security-related education in Sri Lanka. The university, with its world-class standards, systematic innovation in line with global practices, and local and international student body, places emphasis on the unification of fundamental ideas. These pillars have world over been successful in the development of countries, their defense mechanisms, and enhancing the civilian workforce. With the discipline of a military training establishment and the commitment for knowledge dissemination, KDU not only provides a platform for those who want to contribute to national security and development of one's country, but it also imparts high-quality education in an array of disciplines such as engineering, law, medicine, management, social sciences and humanities, allied health sciences, built environment and special sciences, computing and IT, technology, criminology and police science. In its forward march of 4 decades, the KDU has produced alumni who have made brave sacrifices for the security and the territorial integrity of the nation, and earned gallantry awards for serving the country with distinction. Many amongst them have made the supreme sacrifice for the motherland. Since the end of the war, those who pass out from the KDU operate in the trunk services and elsewhere as disciplined and committed leaders who continue to serve the national interests of the country. The KDU is home to multiple faculties and disciplines that empower and provide a range of choice to both trunk-service office cadets and day scholars. Day scholars whose focus is not to pursue a military career are also able to learn on campus while truly understanding the dedication of their counterparts, the tri-service office cadets and police officers. This leads to a harmonious environment between civilians and the military, both on and off the campus, due to their shared experiences at the KDU. Addressing national issues with
you. The judging panel have decided the winner of the oral presentation sessions today. May I cordially invite the Dean, Faculty of Technology, Dr. Prasanna Premadasa, to award the certificate to the winner, and Dr. Hirulak Sirivardhana to accompany him. We are delighted and proud to announce the best oral presenter of the first Technology Track Research Conference held by the faculty. The winner is Mr. HKIS Lakmal. The paper title, Improving Visibility at Night with Cross-Domain Image Translation for Advanced Driver Assistance Systems. We congratulate Mr. HKIS Lakmal for his achievement. Thank you, sir. Now, I would like to invite Professor P.G. Rathnasiri, the chair of the session, to give away the certificates to the other presenters, and Dr. Sailesh Shestra to accompany him. May I invite Ms. DMDC Dissanayake to accept her certificate. Mr. KGR Samarawickrama to accept his certificate. May I invite Mr. HMKP Jayathilaka to accept his certificate. May I invite Mr. I.J. Amadoru to accept his certificate. May I invite Ms. J.P.S. Jayanetti to accept her certificate. Thank you all. Sir, please remain on the stage to present the token of appreciation to the panel of judges. May I invite, and also I would like to invite Dr. Thilili Wijayarathna to accompany sir. May I invite Dr. Mahintsasu Rathnayake to accept his memento, please. Next, I would like to invite Dr. Akila Subasinghe to accept his memento, please. Next, I would like to invite Dr. S.K. Wijayasekara to accept her memento, please. Thank you, sir. On behalf of the Faculty of Technology, we would like to extend our gratitude to Professor P.G. Rathnasiri for chairing the Technological Track Technical Session 2. And with this, we conclude the very first research conference held by the Faculty of Technology. We thank everyone who have submitted and presented their research papers. I would like to invite you all to join us for the lunch. Thank you all for your attendance and wish you a wonderful day.